Okay, this is another episode of Thorin and Loco versus Worlds. And this episode is brought to you in association with GG Esports. And that is a site that is a statistical matrix where you can predict games, bet on games where you can win these things called gems. You compete against your friends or anyone else who's out there on the leaderboard, and you can take the gems, you can exchange them for things like, if you're in League of Legends, RP, Riot Points, skins, all sorts of different stuff. So you'll see that throughout the video. We'll be using the site at certain points in time, and it's thanks to them that we're able to make these videos and make some Skrilla along the way. Right, so usual panel of people. You've seen them on past episodes. Me and Loco, that's fairly self-explanatory. Wouldn't really make sense if we weren't in the episode. Like, would it be pretty dodgy if it was like one of those TV shows where they just replaced one of the characters and I was just a new guy now, just a different guy called Thorin. And with LS here, you may remember from our episode about the region of Korea, which is his reason. Remember, Loco's actually from North America for the purposes of these shows.
We saw me and LS.
Yes, exactly. Yes, you just swapped allegiances. So, in this episode, the first two groups have already fully played out. Group A, Group B, obviously a lot of excitement in both of them, actually, unexpectedly. But Group C and Group D, as of the time of this recording, and hopefully when you're watching it, have yet to actually play out the second part of it. Now, there is no week 2 anymore. It actually is just all the days running concurrently, but it's basically the equivalent of what used to be week 2. You play the first stage of the round robin, each opponent once, and then you're going to play the second stage where, again, you play each opponent once. And for anyone who's wondering, it's actually based on... How do they pick the sides for this one? I think you just get to pick anywhere or something?
No. So you play blue or red on the first week, or like the first
right,
week,
and you swap.
right?
Okay,
and you just swap for the next.
Right, and so yes, we're going to come up to the second lot here. And so what we thought we'd do is, having seen the first week for C and D, this one's going to be for Group C, we're going to do a preview for this, and we're going to look at the teams, who they are. Obviously, we've seen the games they've played so far, and then we're going to try and predict what we actually think will happen. So unlike a lot of people out there, it's a cool life being an analyst, because you can say all the great things you like about each team, and at the end, okay, for a graphic, you might have to say who you're going to pick to win, but you don't get held accountable unless you're an NALCS caster, in which case you got absolutely wrecked this week and the whole community was completely up your ass, probably too far the other way. Like, I think they went way too extreme on that in some ways. Like, I was critical, but man alive, I wasn't hating on them, you know. I don't think they're terrible analysts or anything. So, right, so for Group C, this is the group that obviously we saw that had KT Rolster, top Korean seed. It had Mad Team, who is from the LMS. It had Team Liquid, number 1 seed from North America. And what was the fourth team for this one?
It had Edward Gaming.
Yes, that's right. Edward Gaming obviously came through the plains, but it's a very storied Chinese franchise. So let's start out at the top here. KT Rolster. Now, LS, when we did the regional episode, you said this is like your hope for the Korean region. Like, this is the team where if someone's going to win Worlds from Korea, it should be KT Rolster. If someone can slay, funnily enough, the narrative for this Worlds obviously is actually that RNG is the favourite for most people. If someone can really stop them, should be KT Rolster. In this group thus far, business as usual?
I think that this group's current standings is actually it's going to be the final standings. I don't think anything will change. I think KT gets out, first seed, Edward Gaming, second seed, and then Team Liquid, and then Bad Team.
All right. So yeah, I mean, let's go over the standings a little. So KT's right now at 3-0, Edward at 2-1, one of their losses to KT. Team Liquid 1-2, both of their losses to Edward and KT, and Team Mad 3 losses. So it's actually like played out exactly in like the best team beat all the teams worse than it, and the second best team beat all the teams worse than them. And TL only beat Matt, the team that's worse than them, and Matt didn't beat anyone. So it's like a super standard group. So
okay,
yeah,
but here's the question,
exactly how it should be.
The question here, though, is Loco. Some people have no doubt, especially people who don't watch the LPL, when they heard EDG is the third seed from China and that they had to go through the plane, most people probably thought, right, no matter how much you want to hate on NA, surely Team Liquid can beat EDG. Like, that's a real chance to come out in second. When they play the next time, EDG is going to beat them again?
So me and LS actually had like a Twitter argument over this. I said TL would play much better and then Edward Gaming.
What were the conditions for why they would play better?
So, let's frame the argument first. LS said TL would show 0 macro, And
Yes.
I was like extremely upset about that because I don't think TL was showed zero macro because they were a team in NA that had very, very clean and very, very good like traditional macro. Like they played very standard in terms of just playing how they played out the game. They would always group for objective together, execute on vision properly, and just play that normal clean macro style. So when Aless said TL was showed zero macro, I was like super upset because EDG, I watched them during play-in, were so messy. Like I didn't know what the fuck they were doing a lot of the time. Like they randomly took fights. They got cut out a lot, and their vision control was garbo. Where TL, on the other hand, last time I saw them was at NA finals, and they played really clean during NA finals. So yeah, we had an argument about how much macro TL would show, and it birthed a beautiful copy pasta. Yeah,
Indeed.
So
Here's the
yeah,
thing,
actually,
Loco. I've got to give you credit, mate. Like to be fair, when you say stuff, even when it's wrong, it does stick, mate. Like there was the Fnatic's going to crash and burn. You know, obviously, there's a lot of good quotes you've got out there. You know, this is another great one. This could last a while.
So my problem with all these like quotes for me is, in the end, it became wrong. But going off the information I had, like for Fnatic crash and burn, when I saw like Unicorns and Fnatic play, they played fucking terrible. And then when they came to MSI, they played amazing. So I saw how they played, and I was like, yeah, these fuckers are gonna crash and burn. Like they're not better than us. When I saw TL play at finals, they played extremely clean. And I watched them play at Worlds, and then Doublelift is trying to like auto ulted All-Star, and then he gets comboed, and then he dies. TL takes Rift team fight with like the team split up in 3 different positions. Like I don't know. Like yeah, I'm just lost. Like what the fuck happened to TL?
Sure. Like LS.
Yes.
As Loco just said there, in some degree, now I won't say entirely, because obviously the problem there is Team Liquid played against the NALCS, they weren't playing against EDG and KT Rolster in the NALCS. You know, there is context in which both of you could make your case. Yeah. In that scenario, I can see what Loco means. You know, he had a basis to what he said. So what do you think about the fact that Team Liquid did in fact show zero macro?
Well, I want to... So, Loco's saying that... I don't disagree with Loco. The cops are coming for me.
It's Steve Arneset's just sent his private guards out to arrest you for saying shit about Team Liquid, so
fucking Steve.
He will buy your silence.
Yeah. So I don't disagree with Loco that EDG doesn't look clean. My issue, or my stance inside of the argument, was that EDG in LPL and watching EDG, they have to do what they had to do, or they had to play the way that they did against stronger opposition.
Yes.
So my whole stance was, if a diamond player goes into bronze, the bronze player cannot tell that they're not against a pro because they're incapable of realizing the skill differential. But we all know that a diamond player and a challenger player is worlds of difference. So when I'm looking at TL in the finals, and when I did the VOD reviews towards the end of the season, I saw a lack of punishes. I thought that the punishes were absent. I thought the opportunities that could have been capitalized on were absent. I thought that TL was disregarding things that would have been better for them in the moment simply because they could get away with not doing it. Mm-hmm. And I think the way that I would relate it is like in another game or something that I think a lot of people probably watch majors of, like Super Smash Brothers Melee or something. If you watch a top 100 player, the top 100 player can wave dash, they have tech, they can do everything. And if they go up against a random person, they're still going to look quick. They're still going to look clean. But we know that it's light years apart from a top 20 player or a top 25 player.
Okay.
So if you take the rank 100 Super Smash Brothers Melee player and a top 25 player, it is 2 entire worlds of difference. And so you can look at the top 100 player and be like, yeah, he's good. He wave dashes, he has tech, he does all these other things, he has good punishes, he's creative, etc. The reality is that he's not good. When you hold him to the standard of the top 25. Now, you take a top 40 player still doesn't look as clean as the top 25, but the top 40 player is having to do what he does against more difficult opposition.
Well,
so that was how I was trying to handle the EDG TL stance.
Okay.
And so when you go down the list of EDG's players, I think pound for pound, they have to go up against, and they struggle against, more resistance in their own domestic league, LPL, than what anything TL has to go up against. So I thought or I still think, TL can get away with doing what they do against weak opposition, sort of like a diamond player picking on a bronze. But when a diamond player goes up against a diamond player, or a diamond player goes up against a master player, they're not going to look as good. And that's how I perceive TL.
So
what about this? Yeah, go on.
I want to contest him a little on that.
Yes.
So you talk about TL as like a top 25 player playing versus like worse teams, right? Like in your Super Smash analogy. But my problem with TL was like they're failing to do like all the stuff they know how to do at Worlds, and they're looking like incredibly like they don't look like themselves. That's my problem with TL right now.
Right.
They are a team that was known for clean macro. It doesn't have to be clean punishes, but they did things as a group, and the stuff they did makes sense. But now like they're not showing any of that, so it's like super fucking confusing. So
let me bring this really quick. So like for instance, you yourself in solo queue, if you go on a silver, if you go into silver or bronze, you're gonna hit 10 CS a minute in bottom lane. But if you go into challenger on NA or EU, whatever, Korea, you will not hit 10 CS a minute.
So sure, I might get contested more on it, but it's not even that. It's like, but I will still be able to use All-Star combos. I'll still be able to combo with All-Star. I'll still be able to use Flash WQ and then press E afterwards. I'll still be able to do the stuff I have practiced. But it's like TL practice, like playing and setting up for objectives properly and making sure they play as a team. And then on stage, they do none of that. Like that's where I'm really confused. Like they were so practiced regarding fighting around Dragon, fighting around Herald, and like I was just so confused by what I saw. So but, I mean, that's my problem with it.
A diamond player is going to be able to do Alistar combos and stuff, and he's going to be able to do them whenever he wants versus a silver. But against a challenger, he's going to do them at the wrong times. And
yeah, but TL's not even doing that. Like that's the thing. Like
I know. Yeah. And I think they can't find the openings against stronger teams. That's just my stance.
Well, I mean, another aspect would be like I think you'd have a hard time in this particular game that they played against EDG, seeing that they didn't, in some sense, choke. Like for example, that fight that they had, I noticed it was one that you clipped actually, LS, and we're laughing about, was the one that they took in the top lane where they engaged onto EDG, who was in a great position, and thought that they were going to catch them somehow, literally instantly got turned on them, completely wrecked under their tower, and in that fight was where I think Impact completely fucked up like the Scion ult. Now, a player like Impact, as a veteran player, played many years, even known as a very good tank player, fantastic team fight tank player normally, he's not going to mess up a Scion ult if it's a random LCS game, if it's 4 years ago when he was playing for SK Telecom. So it does feel like there was a choke element, or there's something psychological affected them in this game, because I don't believe that he just doesn't know how to do the ult for that champion. That seems implausible. So it's a bit of both, it sounds like.
Yeah, I think that it's similar to in like a fighting game or something. You've gone into the lab or you've gone into sandbox mode and you've practiced combos 100 times. But when you're against another player, you get so caught up in how they're going to react that you start second guessing yourself. And if you do that for even 1/10 of a second, it might cause whatever you do to miss, or you might just drop the ball. And I think that's also what happens at that level. And it's sort of like what I was just trying to talk about with Loco. Like when you acknowledge that the opponent is also aware of you just as much as you are, you start second guessing what line you can take to actually land the punch. And that might cause you to just miss out entirely.
Okay. Yeah. So,
what about, okay.
Okay. Yeah. Well, to talk about Team Liquid a little and to bring GG Esports into this, I want to talk about like what kind of team they are and like why I'm just like so confused by them like at this tournament. So they're a team that's like really heavily bottom focused. Doublelift has 75% kill participation. Ole has 77% kill participation. And guess how much Pobelter has? Any takers?
60%.
Yes, 56%. 56% as a mid laner, comparatively to Doublelift and Ole 75% and 77%. So they're a team that's super focused around bottom. I think it's so rare to find teams where the mid laner has like 56% kill participation. Doublelift has 8.4 KDA. They're a team that knows how to play around double. The biggest problem NA has with going to Worlds is we're this team, but they get to Worlds and they're like, oh my god, like what we do doesn't work. We have to be something completely different, and they fail, right? But TL is one team I didn't expect to do that, because their identity is so clear. They play around Doublelift, and he's their strongest player. And yeah, maybe they're just choking. Like, yeah, it's super fucking confusing. I'm just confused by TL.
Sure. You know, one thing I thought maybe this would tie into this particular matchup, because obviously it was Chinese team from the LPL against a team from the West. I thought that Papa Smithy actually made quite an interesting string of tweets that apparently he made them in, I think, like August, and he just retweeted them today because they were relevant, where he said that one of the reasons he actually thinks that the Chinese teams, RNG is the best example, obviously, are ahead at the moment and they're the best team, is because in the old days, you think of all the great Korean teams in history who've won the World Championship. Basically, the best way to describe them is they're control teams. Like, they know exactly how to play out the game. They play around vision. From that, they make the correct decisions. They isolate the right players. They take the right team fights. He said actually that he feels as though the meta at the moment, it actually favors, since there's so few wards in terms of what there was, you know, in season 3, season 4, he feels as though actually now it's less about warding and setting up that way, and it's more about being able to continually fight. Like, I mean, he didn't say this part, but, you know, to skirmish, to set up, and then to team fight throughout the game, basically, not just like set up for the one big team fight. What do you think of this then? You're both people who followed the game for a long time. Does any of that resonate?
I think definitely. I think the first team fight matters a lot, and because most of the time people play around bottom, and there's so much globals being played right now, especially globals and like heavy dive comps like Galio, Nocturne, Rise. These like heavy pressure globals, that the first fight matters so much, and like everything really is explosive, and game happens really quickly. Like, you win a fight, you get Herald, you take mid lane, you take the other outer tower, like game goes boom, 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 boom. Like, first big fight win means so much, and then mid game you kill 2 people, or maybe you kill 1 crucial member, you get Baron, and then boom, game over.
What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that.
Yeah. I think that team fights have more rewards in this particular meta, and for the last few months, which has been the meta. I think that I do actually wonder if the stagnant meta is hurting teams like Korea, and it's actually making teams like China more comfortable due to the nature of the champions that are in the meta. I don't know if I necessarily agree with fighting inherently is a better style or anything like that. I just don't know if like with any major meta change or any change to strategical direction, it's going to take time for anything to stabilize. And when you watched LCK or something, even towards the very end, it looked like everyone was just still approaching things with their own direction. I think that, as we mentioned in the last episode, this was the first time that it looked like LCK just had so many different styles amongst even the top teams. And I think that's something that you couldn't say for previous years.
Okay. So, do you want to talk about the other teams a little, since we've been so heavy caught up on TL?
Yes.
I can start with EDG.
Yeah,
so,
why don't we? They're the obvious team to talk about, since we just alluded to their match against Team Liquid. So, Loco, this must be a surprise that this team actually is competent, right? Because I know a lot of the LPL experts actually didn't even expect EDG to make Worlds.
So yeah, but I do remember one thing that Kelsey said, that EDG is like sort of like the Cloud9 of NA, or Cloud9 of China, and they're the team of miracles. And like, looking at some of their stats are actually really good, and I think their stats are really good in the key part. So their average 25-minute goal difference in the last 25 games is 3.85k. That's almost 4k goal difference at 25 minutes. First hero rate is at 70%. And then this is like the really big one, and this is my favorite stat of all time. First Baron rate. Their first Baron rate is 71%. I think first fucking powerful. Like, when you get Baron, you're at like 80%, 70% win rate. And the fact that they get first Baron at 71% is fucking crazy. Scouts KDA is off the chart. Also, this guy has averaged 10 KDA, 69% kill participation. Like, Scout's doing real well for himself, and he has been like the clear key star player for them. So yeah, I mean, EDG, like, when you take a closer look at who they are as a team and like some of their stats, like, it's just been really good. Their first dragon percentage is also at 72%. First chart percentage, only 50% for red side, 80% for blue. Like, so definitely when they're on blue side, they play much better. So yeah, I mean, I'm pretty impressed with EDG. I didn't think they'd be this good. I thought they'd be on similar levels of TL in terms of like coordination and in terms of like carry strength, but Scout has been a real difference maker in terms of TL versus EDG, where EDG have a clear like Harvard level mid player that they can play to.
LS, you are not known to exactly be a fan of like the LPL generally, but I did notice you did obviously big up RNG and say they could win the tournament, and likewise, Invictus Gaming's a team, but certainly EDG wasn't really that much on your radar, right? So have they actually been better than you expected?
Yeah, I thought from watching their game, I was going into it expecting a traditional type of, like my stereotypical belief on Chinese teams. Very strong, well-rounded mechanics, but reckless and lacking as the game would continue to go on. But I actually thought they were really clean. Not like, see, when I say clean, people are going to think that I mean that they're not making mistakes, but I don't mean that. I mean that I thought that they were decisive with realizing when they could punish TL. And I think that they looked at least a little bit more refined than I was expecting. And it seemed like they actually understood the identity of their team composition at very select moments inside of the game. And for that, I mean, I thought it was good and I was impressed. But you're right that I do think, like, when you mentioned that I'm not like a fan of the LPL, I feel like people probably have this perception of me as well, but I don't really tend to care too much about the regions, rather than are you good or are you bad. But I do think that like EDG looked better than I expected. And if I would have watched EDG and then you would ask me today, I think that they even looked better than Genji because I wasn't impressed with Genji so far in the tournament. And now they're eliminated, obviously. But like in the last show, I wouldn't have mentioned EDG or Genji as like comparable teams in terms of like who might be better. But I think China is actually looking really good this year.
Okay, so obviously we'll predict the actual group later, but what about this then? In a world in which perhaps EDG will be getting out of this group, are they actually a team that can beat anyone in a best of 5? What do you think?
Well, it depends who they run in. I guess they won't beat any of the other Chinese teams, I'm assuming. And then I don't think I am extremely doubtful that they can take down KT. I think KT just has way too much of a massive edge. So I think that almost regardless, their run must surely end at semis if they make it out of groups.
What do you think, Loco?
Who can they beat? I think if I don't see them getting out of first, so they have to beat some of the first seed. First seed, they won't be able to beat RNG. So from Group A, it's either going to be Africa, G2, or Flash Wolves as first seed. I think they can beat any of those three.
They can beat Africa?
Yeah, definitely. I think they can beat Africa. So for groups, what's the other group that's left? Group D. That's going to be IG, Fnatic, and IG or Fnatic.
Yeah, IG is getting first. So they won't be IG, they won't be RNG, but I do agree with you. They can beat anyone from Group A, but I think that Africa would have edge. But I don't think Africa is going to get out. And well, actually, yeah, I do. I think Africa will get out in first.
So, yeah, I mean, it's up in the air, but yeah, that's probably their only path to semis as a second seed, to meet Africa, who gets out as first seed, if they get out as first seed, and beat them and make it out to semis.
Okay. Right. Well, obviously, we talked about Team Liquid. Let's just leave the Mad team till the end instead of the team that's been the least significant. Let's talk about KT Rolster then. Mm-hmm. So I know that in this format of Worlds, sure, people were concerned, like, what if KT Rolster plays RNG? What if they play some of the top teams in a big semi or whatever? Yeah, that's where you think the pressure can kick in, etc. But in best of ones, as you've seen in Worlds so far, it's just one game. It's actually a lot easier to get upset. So KT hasn't been upset so far. Are they going to get any losses whatsoever in this group?
I'll go over KT and their stats a little, and I'll answer their question. KT actually has pretty shitty early game stats. Their average turret differential at 20 is 0.72 in the last 25 games. Average 20-minute dragons, 0.84. Average goal difference at 25 minutes, 2.2k. Their first hero rate is at 65%. Their first Baron rate is at 52%. So I actually don't think KT stats are that good. like from their last 25 games, I guess they had like a rough series versus Griffin. They went to game 5, like, but this is still including the Worlds games. So, well, your question was, will they drop any of the games to the teams in their groups? I personally don't think so, because all the teams in their groups play the exact same way. They play bottom-centric macro game, and KT is the best at bottom-centric macro game at the whole tournament. Maybe RNG is the one team that might be better than them at it, but in this group, I think they are just way too good at playing their style, and everyone in the group plays the exact same style. So, yeah, I don't see KT dropping a game.
Where do you come down on LS?
I agree with Loco. I don't see KT dropping a game. I think KT's biggest weakness is when you can make them their own enemy, and I don't think that you can really do that inside of a best of 1. And I think that they're just going to ride out their momentum, and other teams are probably just going to be stressed with their, well, when I say other teams, I mean Edward Gaming and TL, because that's the real only toss-up that's still going to remain inside of their group. The darkest timeline is if Mad Team ends up taking a game off KT or something. That would be absolutely catastrophic.
Then they would just, but as long as KT still gets 2 wins over the EDG, like they would make it out as first, right? Even if
they make it out as first, yes.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Thus far, has KT Rolster played to the level expected? Have they shown any weakness?
I think they're playing like really well. I think the one game that they showed where I was like, KT, you go with their game versus EDG was so clean. So whenever I do VOD reviews, one thing I noticed was watching NA teams, EU teams, and sometimes even Chinese teams, and most of the Korean teams nowadays, is I can't tell what they're going to do next. I'll be like, oh, they should play for bottom here because they'll have priority and they have a global comp and they should be playing for bottom. And they'll go do some random ass shit and they'll look for like random skirmishes mid lane. With KT, it's very, very easy to tell what they're going to do next, and they play with a certain game plan that's very easy to follow and predict. They're going to play for bottom here. They do that. They're going to get dragon here, and then they're going to swap, and then they're going to play for mid turret. And then they just do the things in order, and KT just plays really standard. They're very nice and crispy team to watch. So I love watching KT.
Okay. Right, LS, has the group play thus far, like, made you more certain of KT doing well at this tournament?
No. I don't think that Edward Gaming or Team Liquid gives them enough resistance for me to know how they're going to fare in the semifinals or in the finals if they make it there. I don't think that EDG or TL are even semi-comparable representatives to Invictus Gaming or RNG, and maybe even Fnatic. I think Fnatic's, from watching their games, still look better than EDG and TL. So I don't feel comfortable, even though I think that KT is not giving me a reason to complain yet, but it doesn't mean that I feel comfortable.
Okay.
Still think Korea is going to lose Worlds.
Interestingly enough, I know for example, when I had the Narrative Wake episode I did where we had on a guy who was like an expert about the LMS, he actually did predict that like Flash Wolves would be really strong. Like he wasn't like those people who thought that was just going to be like, Africa dominating the group. He thought they would be very good because of the bot lane. And then actually there was a lot of people who sort of were low key saying that the G-Rex team actually could potentially be dangerous and have some upset potential. But nobody thought that Mad Team was going to do anything. In fact, the joke that people made was that they're just called Bad Team. Like they're not going to do anything at the tournament. So has there been any signs within the what they've done that they're going to do anything in this group, that they can? I mean, as much as people want to trash on Team Liquid, can Team Liquid lose to Mad Team in the next set of matches?
Mad Team loses scrims to KEG teams. So, I mean, if TL or EDG drop any games to them, then that's just really, really sad. Mad Team's worse than Wild.
For a lot of
KEG, KEG is a regional tournament in Korea. So imagine like the United States being broken up into states and they play against each other. So you
like
have
a collegiate type system almost,
right, just like that. So sometimes you'll have actually really impressive players play inside of KEG. That's actually where I first saw Khan, or it's not where I first saw Khan, but it's where Khan actually, I think, debuted, at least in recent times, again in Korea. There were other players at KEG that were really iconic before they went on into playing in LCK. So just regional qualifiers, regional tournaments, and then eventually you can make your way into the Kespa Cup if you go deep enough as a KAG
Right.
team. So KAG teams will tend to scrim against the top of LMS sometimes. Very, very seldom will they get to scrim the top like 2 or 3 KRCS teams. They'll scrim against some of the LPL secondary teams, and then sometimes they'll scrim against Southeast Asia teams. Mad Team loses quite often to KAG teams, so I don't think that that's very good, especially because KAG teams usually come together only for the tournament. So they're basically losing to solo Q-Star teams. And so I don't think they can get a win.
No.
Okay. What do you think of this Mad Team, Loco?
I mean, I'm pretty disappointed. They're really forgetful, and especially in this group with 3 teams that a lot of the regions are looking forward to, like China. EDG is still one of China's favorite teams. TL is NA's only hope, or along with Cloud9, I guess, but TL is NA's first seed, and KT is Korea's only hope for winning Worlds. So this team is super forgetful. Even if they were a hype team, they would be forgetful. But as LS said, like, they lose to 3rd-tier Korean teams. They haven't won a single game at Worlds. So yeah, I mean, they're super forgetful. Like, I don't think of them much. Like, their stats are also pretty garbo.
I will say I do feel bad for them, because look at the group they've gotten. They've gotten a group with 2 number 1 seeds, and then the third group, the wild card, is like a team from China. So like, that's actually about us in their position, come from where they were looking at. That's about the worst group you could get, basically.
Right.
Yep.
So to be fair, you can't expect them to win any of these games. They probably shouldn't. Like, they're not favoured in any of them, right? Should we do the predictions now then? Should we actually predict who's going to beat who in these next series of matches?
Yeah, let's do the predictions. And let's do something really fun, because I think predictions for this one is going to be super easy, right? Because it's going to be like everyone's just going to predict the better team to beat the worst team. We should all pick one upset also.
Right, yes. Okay. So we'll just go in the order of the games, actually. So first of all, Team Liquid plays KT Rolster. Now, in the position they're in at the moment, obviously they have to be either KT Rolster or EDG and force a tiebreaker that way. Is there any universe, LS, in which that crisp macro comes out that Loco reminded you of? And maybe, it was all the long con. They were just setting them up with the rope of dope. KT comes in, they think, we could fight against these guys all the time. The macro just takes care of business.
No, how deep is Steve's pockets? I think that's the only way they beat KT.
He just has to buy KT now.
You gotta buy KT.
Basically, Steve has to do that thing that, people do in movies, where it's like, bring me this 10 bottles of champagne. They're like, sir, I think you've had enough to drink. And he makes a call on his phone, like the billionaire guy. Then he says, I just bought the restaurant. You're fired. It's like, that's basically what Steve Arnett would have to do now for KT Rolster to actually win the game. So lose the game, rather, obviously. Yeah. Loco, any chance for Team Liquid on this one?
No, I think Team Liquid, as you said, they've been choking at Worlds pretty hard. And this KT team is stylistically a better Team Liquid. They're better at Team Liquid where they're good, If TL had a different kind of strength, right? If they were maybe a really strong mid and jungle, if they were more like Vitality and Cloud9, where they were more random, fight-oriented, tempo-based, with wonky kind of pick team, they might have a shot versus KT, but they're just a lesser version of KT. This one, I cannot see TL taking the game at all. Easy KT bet.
Right,
Even the odds for KT winning, or if you bet on KT, you get 1.1 back. If you bet on TL, you get 6.1 back. So yeah, the site has KT as, GG Esports has KT as heavy favorites also.
Yes. One other factor, I think, to this matchup, why I also don't think Team Liquid can win, it's not just that they're the weaker team, etc. And also, obviously, a massive flaw, like you said, Loco, is the last thing you want to do if you're the weaker team is play a similar style to the stronger team, because it also gives you less opportunity to win. There's less, you want it, if anything, you want to have a totally contrasting style, either in terms of the tempo or which player you play through, what lane you play through. But even worse than that, I think an underrated factor is, everyone on every show, on every ranking I heard, one of the reasons they think that RNG will beat Fnatic is because Reckless clearly has some sort of weird psychological block when he plays against Uzi. Like, it's almost like he thinks Uzi is going to beat him. He thinks it's not going to go well. It changes how he plays. And so he doesn't even really play like he could. And so it gives him even less chance to win. And it means someone like Uzi is going to, if anything, it's like red rag to a bull. They're going to go even more ham and they're going to take any advantage they can. One of the most underrated aspects is Doublelift has exactly the same thing. Because if you think of how Doublelift trash talks and how he conceives of himself, part of the reason he trash talks, and I'm not talking now when he just trash talks for fun, I mean when he legit does think, like, I'm better than this player or this team, that's exactly it. His conception is like, well, I should win now because I'm better than them. Well, I've noticed in his career, when he plays against Uzi or the Korean bot lanes, like obviously people like Mata, Imp, Deft, he actually does on some level agree that they're better than him. He actually does think that like Deft's a better player than him or Imp's a better player than him. So I actually think that's a really, really bad thing, because say what you like, I'm not talking about delusional self-confidence here, but I know that some of, for example, the really good EU mid laners, this is no joke, they really believe if they go against like Yukal, who's like a rookie, you know, that they'll beat them. Like they can be better. So I think that that's actually quite a worrying sign, because the problem is if they lose this game, in Doublelift's mind, it's like, well, okay, that's the better AD carry, that's Deft. Of course I'm supposed to lose to him. So that's a bit of a concern in itself. I feel like Team Liquid mentally is checked out when they play elite teams. So for this matchup, yeah, I'm with you guys. I think KT Rolster, by all reliable metrics, should win this one. Right, let me...
I want to...
Yeah, go on.
Go ahead. No, I just thought about something that's really interesting. I think that mid lane, due to the creativity and the way that champion styles and everything can play out, this is a fucking analogy, you know, I got to give you one. I think ADC is really similar to Terran in that it's so mechanical.
It's right.
It is TBT. When you're in the mirror matchup, the more mechanical player, it's very easy to tell that you're outclassed in the mirror. But historically, Protosses and Zergs can always beat the Koreans, historically, with cheeses and with innovation and with timing. And I think that's how mid lane is. So I think it actually helps EU mid laners that their matchups are more volatile than a bottom lane matchup. So I think it's actually easier for Doublelift to be honest and be like, I'm actually just outclassed, because fundamentally he's outclassed and there's very little room for innovation, whereas in mid lane, there's a shitload of fucking room. You just look at the history of StarCraft, and no Western Terrans ever really stand out toe-to-toe with Koreans, but Western Protosses and Zergs could always beat them sometimes. And that's just due to the nature of the matchups. That just popped into my head, and I just immediately thought of it.
Speaking of that, like, bot lane is about trays, and then taking it all in. And also, you don't get that much interference from the jungler because you have two trinkets that you can play with, so you can almost always keep a ward up, and it's very easy to tell when a jungler is coming bot. But for mid lane, jungle can gank from both top side and bot side, and there's a lot of pathing, so there is a lot of variance in mid lane, and like one skill shot can be the difference in mid lane. Like in bot lane, like of course hooks, if you get hit by hooks or if you get missed a hook, that's a big differential, but like bot lane skill shots are usually a lot more forgiving. Like getting hit by an Israel Q is different than getting hit by like a Zoe sleep or a Syndra stun. Like those are devastating compared to like a random Israel Q or a Caitlyn Q or a Kai'Sa W. So, yeah, definitely a lot more volatile matchup mid lane compared to bot.
Right, being as the next two games are both Mad games, and as everyone's just alluded to before, no one thinks Mad's going to win any of the games. Instead, let's do this. Since they're playing EDG and then Team Liquid, which one would they be more likely to upset potentially?
EDG. I think, so statistically for the site, right? So for Mad versus Team Liquid, they're 3.2 if they win. And for Edward Gaming, they're 4.6. The lower the number, the better it is. It means you're closer to them. So the site thinks that they're more likely to upset TL. And I also agree with GG Esports because Team Liquid has a history of choking. And after they lose their first game versus KT, and then they have to play versus Mad, I think this might be the game they drop. I'm going to bet a little on it. What do you think, Ellis?
Yeah, I think that Mad probably has the best chance to beat Team Liquid. But I like what you said about how they're going to go into the game with Mad with potentially already tilted mindsets. But then also, as weird as it sounds, I mean, Mad scrims against these style of teams all the time, just due to the nature of the region. And so I think that in that way, if Mad wants to be a little bit flashy or fancy or something like Gigabyte Marine type thing, maybe they can beat Team Liquid with something unorthodox. But if TL goes 1-3, they can they even make it out of? Oh no, they still can make it out of groups, right?
No.
Depends on what score EDG is.
EDG would already have won 3 games.
Yeah.
No, that's the funny thing, LS, is if you think, right, everyone already, if you're an NA fan, is like, oh, I hope we manage to beat EDG, because if you beat EDG, you can get the tiebreaker, assuming KT also beats EDG.
Right.
But because of the order of the matches, the best way to disappoint as many fans as possible would be you lose to KT, okay, that's fine, we just got to beat EDG. Then you just lose to Mad Team before you even play them, and then it doesn't even matter when you play EDG. Like, at that point, you're already out, and at that point in time, knowing the way NA is at Worlds, like EDG probably just picks like a bunch of stupid shit and just tells on you anyway. So it's like,
does Riot make them play it?
Yeah, I think LS. I agree. You probably shouldn't, because it could allow a lot of stupid stuff. But yeah, you have to play out the group. You must play all the games.
Oh, that sucks.
Which, by the way, actually did end up impacting other groups, because in the other groups, for example, people like Gen G, if they'd just given up, could have affected who got out of the group. It's actually one of the flaws of this format. It's why I don't like round robin, and why in other games we actually got rid of it, because it does allow things like, if you know who you're going to play, you can also rig the draw. If you know you're in first, you can come second to get better. So it's got flaws to it, but again, in this game, we're just going to ignore that for now. Right? What about this then? So we've got those 2 games, and then we get to EDG versus KT. And in theory, in a world in which EDG wins this game, they're now actually in potential position to come top of the group themselves. They can now compete for that. Obviously, that's still a possibility, right? If EDG plays against KT Rolster, do they have win conditions? Is there like a lane that can do well? Is there like something about their style that gives them a chance to win this game?
Trying to think.
I mean, if you think about in the LCK, I've seen KT Rolster, despite even in the summer where they were the best team, I saw they would still have games against lower teams which were, inexplicably they would lose, or someone would just feed a bunch of kills. So is EDG a team that, like, is there a certain type of team you think has to have is there a certain skill set or a certain style you have to beat KT?
I mean, to beat KT,
or is there any anime or TV shows that would be like the style that you'd need to beat someone? Right? If KT Rolster was like Humpty Dumpty and the wall was ADG, LS, you got anything for me here, buddy?
All right, KT is like Shishio from Rurouni Kenshin.
What? Okay, that's too obscure for any of us.
He does. No. He doesn't actually lose. His body gets too hot, and so he loses the fight. Like, he beats himself. That's KT.
Okay, not bad.
Here we go. I had to give you one.
LS, in an out of context quote, says KT will have hot bodies. There's the TMZ version of that.
Clearlove's getting excited right now.
I did hear that one interview. I did hear that one interview about KT saying our biggest opponents are ourselves. I think if there's enough pressure put onto KT that they can lose, this is going to be after Group A plays out. So potentially Afrika might not make it out of groups also. If Gen G doesn't make it out of... Gen G already hasn't made it out of groups. Afrika also doesn't make it out of groups. And then KT becomes the lone Korean hope, and there's a lot of pressure on them. I can see them second-guess themselves and start tripping. One thing I do want to talk about...
If they take that more literally, if they're biggest enemies themselves, then if they lose and don't get out the group, which obviously they can't really do that now, or they come second and lose to EDG and get a worse matchup, they should just have a massive group fight and beat the shit out of each other and just go, it was you, it's all of us, why did you do that to me? Why don't we just play properly and win the group? What the fuck are we doing? Okay, what were you going to say, Loco?
I will say EDG's blue side win rate is in their last 10. It's 10, or in their last 25, it's 10 out of 10. It's 100%. And their red side win rate is 7 out of 15. It's 47%. So they are a team that's extremely strong on blue side. And I checked the matchup. It's going to be EDG on blue side versus KT. So there are little things that are playing into EDG's favor. And I think this is going to be my upset. This is a game I picked to upset for this group. EDG gets to beat KT.
Wait a minute. Right, Loco, you actually have done some sort of mad heel turn here, because people normally lump you in with LS, with Monty, as like, you just overrate Korea, you say Korea's the best just cause Korea, you know. Why are you picking the third seed from China to beat the number one team from Korea, full of all the Hall of Famers who everyone thinks might win Worlds? What's the reasoning?
Okay, if my life saving was on the line, then of course I would pick KT.
Sure.
But we should all pick one upset match.
Yeah.
Like, for me, it has to be this match.
But why is it more likely though?
The blue side thing for EDG, they have 100% win rate on blue side, and this is a blue side game. And this is going to be after Group A plays out and we see the results. And this is going to be the maximum pressure match for KT in its entirety of groups. Are we going to make it out as first or not? It's going to be heavily dependent on this game. So it has all the makings of a KT failure.
And I guess, to be fair, since we've gone group game by game, and at this point, in theory, if they're going to beat Team Liquid, they already will have. They will already have secured a spot out of the group. So I guess technically you also can't be eliminated. So that maybe does create a game in which you can mess up because you're out of the groups anyway. You're going to do fine, but you fuck up the one for the seeding to get number one. LS, you're not taking this as the fucking upset, are you?
No, I think that the upset, there's two upsets that can happen. TL can actually beat Edward Gaming, or Mad beats TL.
Yeah.
I think those are the only two upsets for me. I don't see KT.
The biggest upset in this group wasn't even EDG beating Team Liquid. It was just LS when he found out that UCAL was like ranked 11th on the world's 20 list or something. That was the biggest upset, as far as I can tell. Have you recovered from that now? Is everything okay?
I haven't recovered. I have people tweeting at me that Caps belonged higher. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see in quarters.
Okay. So that
who do you play from quarters?
What
Does Fnatic meet
play?
RNG?
No, it should be randomized, no?
I believe
is it
it's
right?
already known.
What
I'm not
really?
sure.
Isn't it seed one? Seed one draws
again.
random seed two.
Maybe it is then. You could be right.
Okay.
I think it has to be that way, or people match fix.
If-
What
yes,
if it?
I
They're like,
know, but
Yeah.
that's unfortunately
Right.
yeah. Okay.
Okay.
What about this then?
Go.
I know for a fact it was like that in previous worlds. Because we talked about. Oh, remember Origin drew Flash Wolves. They drew Flash Wolves and they celebrated because it was randomized. They didn't know they were playing Flash Wolves until a certain drawing happened. So from my memory, there has to be a drawing.
So the next game after that is the one that, on paper, if everything goes to plan, decides who comes out in second, which is EDG versus Team Liquid. Now, in fact, can you check for this one, Loco? What side does EDG start on in that one?
EDG is blue side for that one.
Okay,
EDG is blue side for all their game except for versus Mad in their last week.
So does that play a factor here? Do they just win again and it helps that they're even on blue side?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely helps, and also they're the favorites for Team Liquid. Their game versus TL played so bad, but also EDG was playing well. I don't think this is going to be upset at all.
LS, are you the one to defend Team Liquid now? Maybe Team Liquid, they've learned their lessons from what happened before. They're pissed off that everyone thinks they're scrubs and they've let down NA. Now they come back, they play a great game. EDG, there's a reason why they were only third seed. Can Team Liquid do it?
No, they can't. I really don't think so.
No how?
I really don't think so. I from watching TL, I've been thoroughly. I was disappointed with them coming into the tournament. I didn't care that they were the number one NA seed. I said that to a lot of people, and I got weird, not weird looks, but I could just tell that they didn't believe me. I don't see them doing anything in the group. I think that they get one more win, and that's against Mad Team.
Did you predict that TL would choke, or their base level was not good enough to do anything?
I just thought that their base level was too much worse than the other. Not too much worse, but too much worse than KT, but worse than Edward Gaming. Okay, I said that I only was impressed with the only people that on TL that I'm really impressed with is their bottom lane and the top lane.
Okay. I think for TL, if their base level is a 10, what they've shown this world is a 6 or a 5. They're playing much worse than their normal version. I actually think this group could have been really fucking competitive if TL. I don't know what the hell happened. It's just NA at Worlds, I guess. And every NA team but Cloud9 always fails to do worse than what they actually can do. It's such a weird phenomenon.
Okay, it was like since the last game is KT versus Mad. I mean, we've already pointed out no one's picking the win, everyone's picking KT. But here's the thing, okay? Me and LS still have to pick our upset. So this is a tough one, right? Because on one level, EDG is, I don't personally think EDG is like a huge favourite over Team Liquid. So if I wanted to go the easy route, I should just pick Team Liquid to beat EDG in one game and say that's like a... But I don't want to be cheap. So for the sake of A, entertainment, and B, I've got my own reason as to why, I'm going to pick Mad Team to beat Team Liquid as my upset. And the reason I'm going to pick this is because another factor in Worlds is I've also seen teams in the past, I'm thinking of the CLG that had Double Lift on it, where they didn't just lose to Q Tigers, etc. They also lost to Pain Gaming. And then I'm thinking of scenarios where, like, TSM, everyone loves to rave about how, but they had RNG and Samsung Galaxy. Yeah, but they also had Splice in their group, you know, and like that wasn't exactly going as awesome as you'd like entirely there. So I actually think this, not only is Team Liquid going to have their problems with KT, might still lose to EDG as well, but I could see a world in which, being as Mad Team is the only team that they're actually like a big favourite to beat, that's psychological pressure in itself. Like, you're already probably not going to get out the group, so in your brain you're thinking like, God, we can't lose to them as well, and then that's where it's just like set up to go even worse. So I'm going to go ahead and say this, and if I'm right, everyone take this moment in the video, call me the new prophet. Crumbs isn't even in this fucking game anymore. He's in Overwatch and me, which, by the way, don't know if he's entirely a prophet there, if he's going to hitching his whole future to Overwatch League, but okay, I'm the new prophet. Okay, if Mad Team beats them, I'm the Mad Prophet, okay? Mad Prophet Thorin. That's going to be my alias. And in that scenario, in fact, I actually think I have the superior name over Loco, because he's Loco, I'm Mad. There we go. You're going to have to be crazy, I guess, LS. I don't know. You have to something else. Like,
you know what the odds are for Mad beating KT?
Probably really sick. I should go on the site right now and put a bet on it, because obviously I could make mad money. Gems, sir. I'm getting gems. Yeah. I'll be getting mad gems, baby. Yeah.
It's 11.1 if Mad wins.
Okay. I'll go collect that cash.
More than 10 times your gems if you can actually get it right. It's crazy.
Okay, LS, what's your upset?
What's your upset?
My upset would... it has to be Mad, if Mad can beat Team Liquid. Even though the game's not going to mean anything.
Yeah.
It has to be, I mean, it could mean something.
Oh, and by the way, here's the thing, LS. Actually, the people the game means the most to is Mad. Because they want to win a fucking game. They don't want to be thought of as a joke. Team Liquid can't lose this game. If they do, they're fucked completely, and they're going to get humiliated. For Mad, it's like, well, we're getting wrecked by Katie Rolster, but we're getting wrecked by EDG, who they probably have scrimmed before. Fuck these Americans. We can definitely take one of them down. That Double Lift guy's always saying everyone's trash. Let's put him in a dumpster. That's what they're going to be like. They're going to be doing like the miracle speech, like, doesn't matter if they're better than us in 9 games. We've got to beat them in 1, boys. Now, come on, do one for the Gipper, or whatever. I don't know, the fucking American sports quotes. And then they go out there, they do the crane kick, you know. Double Lift just runs it, he flashes in, gets crane kicked in the head. Oh, no, and then, you're the best around all night. And then Mad Team wins the game. There we go. I think that's pretty good. What a great scenario, right? Also, someone edit that video with all that music on when they win.
All right. I mean, overall, this was a pretty boring group to predict, but I think the upsets are what makes it kind of fun and what I'm going to be really watching for. LS's upset of Mad beating TL, my upset of EDG beating KT, and Doran's upset of Mad beating KT.
Why not?
No,
EDG I had them beaten.
Oh, Mad beating
No,
EDG.
I've got it wrong. Wait, it's Mad beats Team Liquid. Yeah.
What? So you're the same one as LS?
Yes, LS picked the same after me, but I went first, so I seemed cool. You know? He just seemed like a follower, like, oh, can I come along? I was like, yeah, whatever, you can ride shotgun. Anyway, buckle up, bitch. And then I hit the floor on the Mad train that we're on at this point in time. Right. So the only thing is, though, I like the way you did that, Loco. You were like, anyway, this has been a pretty boring group to predict, but you've already watched the fucking video, so thanks to GG Esports. And if you really believe Thorin and LS's pick, go get them gems. Go get 11 times the gems that you put on this game.
So the 11 times gem was for KT. For the TL.
Oh, right. My mistake.
The side actually thinks it's pretty close. They don't have any rest.
What the fuck? Even GG Esports is picking Mad to beat Team Liquid. What the fuck?
3.2 for Mad is not that, like, because some of the odds are crazy. 11.1 or 4.6. Okay. The site thinks Mad versus TL, you only get to triple your gems, 3.2. Yeah,
because they're scared. They know they'll lose all the gems. Like they want to keep gems, baby. They can't be offering Big odds for that. I love the way even the sites just whatever algorithm predicts that. Like even computers, fucking Skynet's like, I'm out. Team Liquid. I'm not putting any. I have no faith in you. What is that?
Alright.